In less than 24 hours is the anniversary of the invasion, and rightfully so, many military and political experts expect some monumental events to start happening. And Ukraine, for obvious reasons, cannot ignore these potential threats, especially because there are 350,000 Russian soldiers, 450 planes and 300 helicopters are literally on standby. And then recently, Putin had his extremely patriotic concert, and in the meantime, in the background, some very important things started to happen. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And our first video comes to us from the Russian neighboring regions next to Ukraine, where somebody hacked the local radio stations and they were transmitting this air raid sirens. And speaking about the missiles, recently Russia was allegedly supposed to test its intercontinental ballistic missile Sarmat carrying a nuclear warhead, and they were supposed to do this during Biden's visit in Europe. But according to several reports, these tests failed. That's why Putin was never mentioning any of this to the public, and we pretty much never heard about this anything until recently. But then we even have some better news, and is that according to Pentagon, Ukraine is about to receive the gliding bombs JDAM with the GPS system. The range of this ammunition is approximately 45 miles and are supposed to be launched from the planes, which, to be honest, kinda hints us that the West is getting much more acceptable about sending the planes to Ukraine. And indeed, according to the representative of the President of Ukraine, Andrei Yermak, the UK might be the very first country which will allow its military planes to be sent to Ukraine. And then we even have some other countries, such as for example Italy, which mentioned recently that as soon as other Western countries start sending planes to Ukraine, we will do just the same. We even have some reports from Washington that American representatives also started to shift their momentum towards sending F-16 planes to Ukraine. But okay, so what about Russia? And well, according to the Russian propaganda, recently in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there was a huge protest supporting Russia. They did mention hundreds of participants. And I mean, if you, just like me, you also cannot count to 100 by looking at this picture, can you just please like this video and subscribe to my channel, just to see how many of us are here. And then you can also follow me on Instagram if you want to see how I live outside of YouTube. But okay, and speaking about these political rallies, there was an extremely patriotic concert recently in Moscow, in this stadium called Luzhniki. And according to the official information, obviously by Russian propaganda, well, saying official, it's kinda weird here, but okay. They said that the participants were counted to be 200,000 people, but I went ahead and I checked the capacity of this stadium and it only said 76,000, so I guess it was more than 2 people per seat. The concert started with one of the hosts saying that every single century Russia has to protect against the West, and today, our dear comrades, this destiny belongs to us. Then obviously there are many artists performing their extremely patriotic songs, and some of them were even changing the lyrics to make them even more militaristic. And to make it even more patriotic, some artists were putting the tape on their jackets to cover the luxurious Western brands, such as for example Prada, worth of only approximately $4,000 to $5,000, which is approximately a 6-month salary of an average Russian. And I mean, why would you even wear it in the first place? Why wouldn't you wear something else? But let's leave it up to them. And among the participants was this Russian infiltrator Denis Pushilin, who was saying that since 2014-15 all the Western countries were doing was to trying to win some time for Ukraine in order for them to prepare to attack Russia. And that is why, for some reason, according to him, you can never believe West anymore. And later on, as expected, Putin himself, I think, he gave his speech. And the general idea of his statements was that the motherland and family are the same thing. That is why every single person should protect it. Kinda implying that whatever actions the Russian government is doing right now, every single regular Russian is responsible for the consequences. Another major point in his speech is that Russia is fighting on its historic territories and protecting its people, language and culture. Then he just once again emphasized that every single Russian is the defender of the motherland, including kids, who are just, for example, writing the letters to the soldiers on the battlefields. He concluded by saying that whenever we are united, Russia is undefeated, and then after his speech, which only lasted around 3 minutes, he retreated from the stage. And while everything looked perfectly organized, there were some controversies behind the scenes, which Russian propaganda will never talk about. Such as, for example, that around the stadium there were installed air defense systems. Then there were some videos like this where people had to sign in before they were allowed to this concert hall, which kinda implies that some people, if not the majority of them, were forced to participate in this event. And I mean, some of them probably got paid like $20, but I'm sure there were a lot of budget employees and they pretty much had no other choice not to go to this concert or risk being fired. Even the flags of Russia were given out to every single person, and I don't think that refusing them will be an option. And ultimately, some people were confused. Was this even a real Putin? Because he was kinda different from yesterday's Putin. I prefer not to go deep into these highly controversial topics, so just feel free to pause the video and inspect these probably two different persons, and let me know in the comments whether you think it is a real Putin or not. But okay, why would the Russian authorities need this concert? Why it did not happen on the Defenders of the Motherland Day, which is February 23rd, or not even on the anniversary of the invasion, the next day, February 24th. Could it be just to boost the morale and increase the support for this war among regular people, just before some potentially terrible announcements are made? I mean, just think about it. Russia was not able to achieve anything significant so far. They were not able to capture Bakhmut as they wanted before the anniversary of the invasion, so that they can present it as a crucial victory. And just once again, the support for this war is extremely low right now. And so, if you announce any big decision right now as it is, this might create a confusion. And Putin, obviously, he does not want this to happen, because the Patriots is pretty much the only thing he has left. And that is why I think they decided to kinda warm up the public with this grand concert, food and entertainment and everything else. Because as one ancient Roman poet Juvenal once said, people need bread and entertainment. And this is exactly what Putin is doing right now. And while everyone's attention was locked in on this concert, some other pretty concerning things were happening behind the scenes. Because recently, the government of Russia unanimously supported the Putin's new law about the temporary suspension of Russia from the nuclear arms treaty. The last time the Russian authorities did these last-minute changes to the law, specifically about the desertion, treason and avoiding army, was right before announcing partial mobilization. So just once again the timing of this new law is pretty suspicious. Then we have other politicians, such as for example Sergei Mironov, who is saying that he's still not certain whether Putin will run for presidency in 2024. I can tell him right now he will. But he said that his party will not elect any candidates because they want the unconditional support for the current president, which is obviously Putin. And then, already familiar to most of us, Dmitry Medvedev, he said that if Russia is to stop this special military operation right now, the Western world will tear Russia apart. But if Ukraine stops receiving weapons from the West, then this war will be over. So pretty much yes, very, I guess, interesting and elaborated way to switch the attention of Russians from the actual problems. But this is how the Russian government has been operating for the last couple of decades at least. And by the way, there are way more photos and videos of this concert, and if you want to access them all in addition to all the extra footage, I put them on my Patreon. The link is down below, and 1 week free trial is still active. Alright, and before I talk about the upcoming great battle, let's just take a look at the situation in the east. And first of all, according to some Ukrainian reports, Russians started putting the explosives inside their armored personnel carriers and then just sending them remotely to the Ukrainian positions to later detonate. And while Russians are wasting actual working military vehicles, which I don't think they have a lot of them left, anyways, Ukrainians are just using these balloons to attract the Russian missiles. And so far, this strategy by Ukrainians have been proved pretty successful. Alright, and now let's get closer to the actual front lines, where recently Ukrainian artillery has been dominantly successful. And first of all, reportedly, Ukrainians were able to destroy an artillery unit of Russians to the west of Svatove. Next we go to the south to Kreminna, where pretty significant fighting is happening all the way until today. And recently Ukrainians were able to destroy, using HIMARS, they were able to destroy a Russian military base, 4 Russian tanks and 4 Russian armored personnel carriers. And according to the Russian infiltrator in Luhansk region, Leonid Pasechnik, he commented that the situation in Kreminna is pretty complicated. Heavy fighting has also been reported next to Belohirivka, and then, as we go to Solidar, Ukrainians were also reportedly able to destroy a Russian military base to the west of this settlement. As we go to Bakhmut, this is still the place where significant combat activities are taking place every single day, and recently Russians also started to intensify their attacks from the north. But Ukrainians were able to repel these assaults, inflicting significant losses on the Russian army. And then, reportedly, Ukrainians, with the help of the mortar fire, were able to destroy a Russian assault group in Klishchiivka. As we go to the southeast, there was another successful attack by Ukrainian HIMARS, and were able to destroy a Russian military base in Debaltseve. And then, the front lines next to Avdiivka has been seeing the increase in combat activities recently as well. There were also some reports of the Russian air defense system being active in Donetsk, as you can see from this video. And then, ultimately, thanks to once again Ukrainian artillery fire, they were able to destroy another Russian military base to the west of Polokhi. In several seconds we'll talk about this upcoming great battle, but first of all let's briefly take a look at this map, which shows us the changes in territorial control. And first of all, as you can see right here, this is how the front lines next to Avdiivka have been changing in the last couple of days. And then, as we go to Bakhmut itself, we can see that Russians were able to advance a little bit closer to Yehidne, and the next day they were able to advance also closer to Berkhivka. And so, pretty much yes, as you might already know, for the last several days Russians have been advancing specifically in the east. They have been doing it slowly, but the fact is the fact. They have been capturing at least some territories. And most likely, the pace of this invasion is very unsatisfactory for the Russian military commandment. That is why the Russian authorities, they do not focus that much on the progress of the Russian army. And one of the most relatively successful directions for Russians is obviously around Bakhmut. And President Zelensky mentioned that Ukrainians will do everything possible to protect this city, because in case they lose it, Russians might advance to Slavyansk and Turkomatorsk, maybe even all the way to the borders of Donetsk region. But unlike Russians claimed, Zelensky said that Ukraine will not be protecting Bakhmut until the very last Ukrainian. Which basically means as soon as it becomes illogical to protect Bakhmut, Ukrainians might retreat. But the original idea for Russians was to capture this settlement before the anniversary of the invasion, and it does not look like it's going to happen. That is why, according to the representative of Ukrainian Air Forces, Yuri Ignat, Russia might come up with something else, such as, for example, massive missile attacks against Ukraine all the way through February 23rd to February 24th. In case this fails for Russia as well, this is when we can expect some very illogical and unexpected military decisions. Such as, for example, according to another representative of the Ukrainian army, Sergei Naev, Russia has approximately 350,000 Russian soldiers inside Ukraine, in addition to 450 planes and 300 helicopters, which are literally on the standby next to Ukrainian borders. Which basically means that one of such irrational military decisions that Russia might take is to just use them all at once, trying to advance everywhere, hoping to capture at least something. The Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, also thinks that the pretty much crucial moment in this war will start happening as early as beginning middle of the spring, which is just like next week, and can last all the way until the end of this spring. And according to his intelligence data, Russians now have another goal, which is to capture fully Luhansk and Donetsk regions before March 31st. And to be honest, this date has been changing already like 10 plus times. And ultimately, according to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine right now is preparing for the great battle. And not just on the battlefield, but also diplomatically. He also feels that the Russians are not advancing as fast as they wanted. That is why they might make something pretty stupid. Let's call it like this. That is why it is crucial for Ukraine to maintain all the allies with the Western world, to receive their support and to receive the Western machinery as soon as possible. And I mean, it will be perfect if you can spend a lot of time researching all the details to make your decision pretty easy. But just once again, the crucial moment in this war might start as soon as already next week. And so right now, it looks like both Russia and Ukraine is literally on the doorstep of the monumental events in the history of these countries. And if you want to witness it all happening right in front of your eyes, just please once again subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where there is still 1 week of free access. You can find all the other links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.